Hi, I'm Rashid Ogunlaru, coach, speaker and author, and welcome to the latest in my video series for NHS Southeast Leadership Academy. Today's video is about coaching others through change. It's part of my Coaching Yourself and Your Team Compassionate Leadership series, and this is part of the broader suite of videos brought to you from the Academy, this leadership short series, 10 to 15-minute videos to help you in all aspects of your leadership journey. And coaching others through change is going to be a major one for a leader, whatever stage and whatever rank you are in organizations. It's key. So I'm Rashid, I'm a coach. My job is to help people, to coach people throughout their own journey. So it's something I'm very, very familiar with. So let's look at change. Now, there's a number of different elements here for us to be aware of, and it starts exactly there with being aware that change happens and it happens constantly. So we need to first of all be aware. That means that we can be alert and we can anticipate. And then when change happens, are we angry about it? Sometimes naturally we're angry about it, but it's about channeling that in order that we can transform that into something very, very, very meaningful and nourishing rather than destructive. And then that moves us to acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean being passive. It means actually acknowledging and moving things on. So we can become armed and able. We can begin to take the action and adapt. Key thing is that we participate, we anticipate, we communicate, and that we cooperate. So by you being aware of change and the nature of change is really important. And by you being aware of this, it might help you spot where is it that your colleagues are on this journey? Where is it that they are on that journey? So remember, it's a bit like that. You know, you might be working on X, Y, and Z, and all of a sudden something happens here, and suddenly things constantly change. Things can happen. It's really, really important that we're aware that this leadership thing isn't necessarily an easy street. There can be events, there can be distractions. Things can suddenly change in a moment. So we need to start off with this kind of poise, which means that we're centered, We anticipate. We can respond, or we can react, or we can park. So we need to, on this journey, be three things. There's the manager. Yep, we know it's about managing the people, the tasks, the resources, and so on. But this is all about us as the leader. Yep, setting that space, being clear about the vision, empowering and enabling others, and then that coach, that developmental piece. But it starts here. So this might help you to spot, actually, where my team at right now? And where are the individuals? So when you've got change going on, this is a slide which I used in one of the other videos here as well. And what this is about, how big is the change? What's the nature of the change that's going on? Is it large, is it small, that's required or that you're faced with? What's the comfort zone factor? Are you within your comfort zone? You're going to need to stretch your comfort zone. And it's worth thinking about these things. What's the nature of the challenge? What's the character or the competence? What's the courage going to be required? You know, we'll all have different starting points here. For you might think, actually, for me, it's about the challenge. I quite like the challenge and I respond best when it's a challenge. Somebody else, it might well be, I need to have the courage to put myself forward to do this. In other cases, it's very much about the character of somebody's circumstances or their competence. These give you different ways in, what the skills, resources, and the people you have in your network to help. Being aware that some things may well be unknown, there may well be unknown factors, or they may be unknown to you. How conscious of you what's going on in the broader environment, perhaps for your team and your lives, perhaps in the organization more broadly, perhaps in your industry. So this is helping us to be aware, to become aware. And what's going on in the environment, what resources might we have? So again, this is all about helping us become very, very mindful so that we're well placed to help move through change. Let's now begin to bring in the coaching element of this, coaching others through change. So where are you at right now? Where do you want to get to in your life, in your career, in your project? So these are questions you could use for you. These are coaching questions that I'll often use for others. And then what steps do we need to take to get there? And when? Okay, what planning is going to be involved? What skills, training, and abilities and guidance are going to be involved? What resources do we have and what do we need? What challenges might we face along the way? So again, this is something you might want to pause. You might think, hang on a minute, Rashid, I want to pause this. I want to play this through a particular challenge that I'm with now. You can replay it and answer the questions based on these questions. Where are you at right now? Where do you want to get to in your life, in your career, in your project? What steps do you need to take to get there and when? What planning, what research, what knowledge, what resources, what people, support? What challenges might you face? And I think actually it might be challenge here, might be challenge here, might be this challenge with this person, might be this challenge, might be this challenge with my time. What might be the problem with people, the practices, pitfalls? And how is it you're going to need to be to succeed? What's the mindset you need? What's the behaviors you're going to need? What the skills, support, resources that you have and you need? And very often we forget the things that we already have. And these are all part of the puzzle to help us along on this journey. So as coaches, I invite people to use a range of tools. And when I'm training people, coaching skills, I will be basically taking them through a number of things. We're using powerful questions. You might have noticed the last slide was all questions to help us get insight. It's about listening deeply and reflecting back. You said this, you said that, and inviting your staff to constantly reflect back. What have you been working on? What have you learned, etc. So getting them to reflect, and you might work in a field of reflective practice, you might be very familiar with this. Broadly, when we're coaching, it's very non-directive. We're not telling people what we want to do. We're wanting them to find out what they learn, to help them learn for themselves, reflect for themselves. It's about goal setting and action. It's about reviewing. It's about learning. It's about fine tuning. This is a thing called the GROW technique. When we're first teaching people, studying to be a coach and what have you, it's usually the first tool we'll teach. What's the goal? What specifically is goal by when? What's reality? Where are you at right now in relationship to your goal? What are the options? What are all of the options you could take? What else could you do? What else could you do? What would this person do? What would that person? What would you do if you knew that you couldn't fail? What would the most wise person you know do? What else? What other options might there be? What things have you not thought of? These questions help prompt us and help us get deeper insight. And then crucially, the will and the way forward. What will you do and when? And how committed are you? So these things may well be useful to help people move from where they have been to where they're moving forward. And this can be really useful in times of change. It depends on the nature of the change. In some cases of change, it might well be that you just stop at a certain area. Okay, what's the goal? Okay, what's the reality of where we are right now? Okay, what are the options right now? What were we going to do when? So sometimes you'll use part of this, sometimes you might use all of it, depending on the situation, depending on the challenge. It's also worth thinking about, if you're helping people change, you're helping people through change, it's worth thinking about these things. Another tool I put together, what's the motivation, the character? What's their competence? What's the authorization required? And what this tool is all about is it's about helping us begin to think, okay, what's the journey I need to take this person on? Maybe they're highly motivated and highly competent. Then in which case, all I need to do is I need to, as a leader, give a little bit of the authority in and perhaps to pass that task on or show they might need a little bit of minor training. If somebody's competence is low and their motivation, let's say, is high, it might well be about the training or mentoring or what have you. You get the idea. If somebody's motivation is low, but their competence is high, it might mean that there's a challenge going on. That might be in some way, might be other things going for them outside of work. They may not be happy within the workplace. So you're going to could be a myriad of things that could be going on. You're going to need to find out by asking them, connecting with them, and so on. The idea here is that there's a whole range of different options based on how we are needing to develop the other person and where they're at. So these are just useful prompts for you to think about. I've covered that content quite fast, but I want you to pause and take your time. This might be something you might be coming back to many times. So I want you to first of all think about what's it you've learned or remembered. Based on this, what actions is it that you're wanting to take? And when? By what date? This is very much the coaching bit. Okay, what action, by whom, and when? And I think the last thing I want to say is I invite you to reflect back on this, is to remember that changes constantly happen. It's part of the process. It's an ongoing cycle. Where are you at right now? What changes are affecting you? What changes are affecting your team? So it's about being aware, alert. It's about being aware. It's about asking. It's about being mindful. It's about that communication. Thinking a little bit about where you and your team are at. And apply this, I'd say, first of all, to yourself before you think about it in terms of your team. And use this to coach yourself, and then you can use some of these techniques perhaps to employ with coaching your team. Here's a particular coaching tool, and this might help us when we're thinking about delegating and developing people and thinking about the time frame of, okay, when am I going to move this person onto this? When am I going to let them shadow me to do this? How can I find somebody to mentor them to do that, etc. And don't forget, it all requires action. Thank you so, so much. Wishing you all the best, and thank you for tuning into this video. Take good care, and bye-bye.